Hello, everybody. I'm Frank Stanisci of Candid Frank Live, where you'll find us airing our views here on the Spanglish World Network. Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci of Candid Frank Live, where you'll find us airing our views here on the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chrome, Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now, on the program with me, as usual, is the better half. I mean that in the most inconsequential sense, or should I say, we don't cohabitate or anything, but he is the better half. I'm just kidding. Don't get all riled, everybody. Thanks for joining us. First of all, everyone, thanks for joining us. And I guess we can talk about the Canadian Football League, but I'm dying to talk hockey. It's back, but we'll start with the Canadian Football League, and let's go to the Riders, who finally end their slide.
Yeah, it was a battle of two really wind-starved teams. Saskatchewan won 37-29 over the Calgary Stampeders. That effectively ended their 7-game winless streak. Um,
Wow.
yeah, this is some much-needed fuel for them in an incredibly tight West Division playoff race. As you know, all the teams are within a couple games of each other there. It's not quite as wide open as the East is. But good to see them finally get on the right side of it for a change. Glad to see that end.
Absolutely, good for them. A new head coach. There's going to be growing pains. We saw here in Toronto Ryan Dinwiddie with immediate success. He had a bit more of running time. People forget that his first year as coach was the year that the season didn't happen. So he had a little bit of more running time to get warm and cozy with his position. The Alouettes clinch home playoff date with their win over the Ottawa Red Blacks.
So a couple different things had to happen here. First of all, the Argonauts had to lose, and then the Alouettes had to win. Their 24-12 victory over the Red Blacks at TD Place means that they will host either the Eastern Final or the Eastern Semifinal in November. So they've virtually guaranteed themselves more bang for their buck at the box office there. Cody Fajardo's got a touchdown on the ground in the victory as well. He connected on 16 of 27 passes for 226 yards. Jose Maltos was good on all three of his field goal attempts. Drew Brown started for Ottawa, but left in the second quarter with an ankle injury. Prior to his exit, Brown had connected on 8 of 16 passes for 69 yards, nice, and 2 interceptions. Um, Everything didn't quite go as Ottawa had hoped, unfortunately, but that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Blue Bombers. And the Elks were looking good there. And then all of a sudden they ran into, I guess you could say, back to the future Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who basically had a slow start to the season, as did the Elks. These are two teams that have improved their status over the crawling of the season. Mind you, though, the Bombers have done a better job, and they continue to do a better job head-to-head with the Elks.
Well, when the Bombers were 2-6, I was thinking to myself that they probably weren't going to be making the playoffs. But uh, you know, shows you what I know. But yeah, they rattled off 6 straight wins in a row here. So they beat Edmonton 27-14 on Saturday evening. As is the common refrain here, their defense on the road helped them clinch it. And the first game of the home and home series between those two West Division clubs. The Bombers' defense was aggressive late in the first half, forcing a fumble. Haba punched the ball out of Kevin Brown's hands, with Jones securing the ball for his squad. Still, the score was only 3-0 at halftime, so it was a bit of a push there. But at the end of the day, their defense showed exactly why they are where they are. So glad to see that happen for them.
The Argo.
Yeah,
Lost to
they
the
yeah, they that is the season series clinched by Hamilton. Um,
sweep. Never mind clinch. Sweep.
yeah,
Get
Clark
the
Leggio
brooms out,
made
baby.
Leggio made all 6 of his field goal attempts, including a 48-yard walk-off winner, as the Ticats met at 3 straight wins in a season sweep over their rivals. Bo Levi Mitchell finished the game 31-40 with 362 yards and a touchdown. Running back James Butler was back in the fold due to Greg Bell's injury, putting together 102 yards from scrimmage. Chad Kelly was 17 of 26 with 255 yards and 3 total touchdowns on the wrong side of the score. He also threw an interception. Devaris Daniels went for 118 receiving yards on just 4 catches. So getting a lot of yardage after the catch. Good to see in that respect. Not so good to see in the Argonauts crumbling in the late going and after taking a 31-30 lead, losing the way they did in the walk-off.
I wasn't there for the game, so I didn't get a chance to be in on the post game. But reports are from people who were in the room. There was a question about time management, and did the Argos head coach Dinwiddie drop the ball when it comes to time management, decision making on the plays, and Dinwiddie was a little sensitive, a little bit, and I think here, clock management matters, and so does the fact that you think you can do something by throwing, but you're ahead by 1 point. All you have to do is kill the clock. And that didn't happen. And usually running helps kill the clock better than passing. And the strange thing is that at the end, when you've got a narrow lead, I'm surprised. I mean, I got to tell you, that's a lot of confidence in not throwing an interception in a game where Hamilton scored 3 touchdowns that didn't require their offense.
No, that is definitely true. I can say that, yeah, time management was definitely a thing. Unfortunately, one of the Argos players stepping out of bounds to stop the clock later in the game didn't help. I can only think that happened as the result of just a little bit of brain fog. You get to that point in the game and you're trying to think of things that you should do, and I can only guess that he stepped out by accident.
This coach has been a player's coach. This coach has been a coach who's taken the blame for losses that, quite frankly, weren't only his. Yeah, absolutely. Head coach should take responsibility. But the last few games where your quarterback doesn't win and then he doesn't speak to the press, that to me is, I don't think that's, I don't think that builds the kind of character you need in accountability, because accountability is something that is really important. I appreciate the appreciation that the Argo players have for each other and for those outside. That word of appreciation is a great word that it really does emanate out of the locker room, out of management. It's something that Pinball Clemens, he promotes hard and consistently. But I do think that a word that's missing is accountability. And this team is not accountable for its losses because their coach continually falls on his sword and takes on the responsibility, when in fact there's problems with this team, not so much with the plan, but the execution as well as maybe the plan. But there's a lot of stuff going on here. If the Argos are going to straighten out the ship, if you will, pun intended, there's going to have to be some accountability. And that accountability isn't about anything other than people actually looking in the mirror and saying, what can I do to make our team better? And, this is what happened to Saskatchewan last year. This is what happens to every team that can't play well. They don't define their errors and don't take responsibility. And if you don't, it's like in life, Aaron, if I don't take responsibility for my mistakes, can I really correct my mistakes?
Yeah, and that's really all it boils down to. The team has to stop asking Dinwiddie to fall on his sword for the media and for the fans. All it takes is 1 or 2 players stepping up and saying, "Hey, I missed a key assignment here. I have to be better. I missed a pass here. I have to be better." That sort of thing is so important to team culture, and right now it just seems to be something that's missing from the Argonauts, which is they're not a bad team. They're
No.
they're not a great team, but they're not a bad team. And this extra little step of acknowledging the fact that they've made mistakes, I think would be important to their development and go a long way towards getting fan sympathy back to a certain extent, and also improving the dressing room. So,
You could hear a pin drop in the locker room after the game. So they are aware. But, the pin drop thing, I don't know how to take the quietness in the locker room. Nobody's saying anything. Is it because they all know what the problem is? Or I don't know. Does anyone have anything to say after that game? Is there anything that could be said after that game? Um, this is a team that is not. It is the. It is not the team it was last year during the regular season. But I'll keep saying this. I said it when the Ticats weren't for years. I've said this for every team that's out of the playoffs, and for many times that I've said this. The season's never over in the Canadian Football League. It's never over. As long as you're within mathematically in a position to make the playoffs, then you've got a chance to win the Grey Cup. We know that about the Canadian Football League. So, that's the thing, the message I give to every fan. Like when fans bailed on Hamilton last year, I said that to their fans, and it turned out 2 years ago that they actually made the playoffs. And that's what I'm saying to Argo fans right now, and to football fans in general. What makes the Canadian Football League so much fun to watch, you can come out of the blue and win the Grey Cup. And you know, there's never lost hope as long as you're mathematically capable of making the playoffs, which the Argos are, and Hamilton are for that matter. So every team in the Eastern Division can make the playoffs, and that means every team could win the Grey Cup. We've seen a lot of Grey Cups with teams that had losing records. Hamilton, Ottawa being one. But anyway,
yep.
I digress. Aaron, thanks for the CFL talk. It's going to be a lot of fun this season. It ain't over yet, and I'm looking forward to the game against Montreal on the weekend. I really am.
Oh, very much so.
I missed that last game, and I really regret it. But I had somebody to take care of, to be there for, so I couldn't make it. All right, so Major League Baseball, Chicago White Sox lose 120th game of the season. That ties a modern MLB record.
Yep. So the 1962 New York Mets and the 2024 White Sox are the only teams that have lost 120 games in the history of Major League Baseball. I think another important thing to note here is no team this year is making the playoffs with more than 100 games won. The New York Yankees have 6 games left. They've won 92. The most they can win is 98. The LA Dodgers, who have Shohei Ohtani, who's at 51 home runs and 51 stolen bases now, could be more, can finish at best with a 99 win record. This is, as far as I'm concerned, this just feels like they're celebrating mediocrity here. I'm just confused as to how this league with 162 games ends up with teams that can't win more than 100.
Yeah, it's but there's always the spin that we can put on something like that. It's a league where moderate success is something a lot of teams have. And even the really good teams, like a lot of people consider the Yankees, like, oh boy, the salary, and the Red Sox and other teams that have the Dodgers and such, they're 100+ teams, but for some reason they haven't done it this year. And I think that's because of the depth and the competitive nature of Major League Baseball and the changing of the rule, Aaron, that, a team gets in front. If there were no wild cards, remember how it was when there were no wild cards? A lot of teams would have to make trades and try to build for next year a lot sooner, giving the teams at the top more time to win games that other teams didn't care about winning, right? So the wild card situation has created more interest going into September. And that's a good thing.
I can appreciate that. And admittedly, at times, teams not running away with it can make baseball, I guess, a little more entertaining. But at the same time, there's not as much of an underdog story. There's just sort of a do just enough to get in feel to it. And that, as someone who appreciates sports the way that I do, I can't help but feel a little bit off about that.
Well, I guess you're one of those people that really liked when the Edmonton Oilers had Wayne Gretzky, or when the Pittsburgh Penguins had Mario Lemieux, or even when Sidney Crosby was at his best, or the Montreal Canadiens had Guy Lafleur, and all those teams were winning in a walk. All those teams were getting a lot of points in hockey. I'm referring to hockey now because it's the same thing in hockey. Great teams make things really interesting for some. For some, it's the competitive equality that matters. I'm neither. What I want to see is, I want to see as many teams as possible get an opportunity to do really well. And we haven't seen that in the National Hockey League. We've seen it in baseball a little bit, and that's what's fun. I talked about the Canadian Football League earlier. I love the idea that any team can win, and all they have to do is make the playoffs, and they might be able to win the championship. That's really hard to do in some sports. Baseball being one, football being another. Not the Canadian Football League, NFL football. So I think it's awesome. Look at lacrosse, right? Look at lacrosse. I mean, Buffalo was dominant all year and won the championship. That's the kind of circumstance or situation that you're referring to, in as far as getting behind games, right? That kind of thing.
I think a lot of people are of the opinion that dynasties are okay as long as it's your team that's the dynasty. When it's anybody else, it's a
Absolutely.
competitive balance.
Absolutely. Every team wants a chance. Let's go to the National Hockey League. And speaking of a chance, the Jets, let's talk about them. They had a preseason game.
Yeah, they had a preseason game, and unfortunately, it was filled with a few mistakes, which unfortunately led to them losing to the Minnesota Wild 5-2. Um, we know that they Caden Barker opened with a goal for the Wild for a 1-0 lead. Jets prospect Nikita Chibrakov responded with a shot of his own. From there it went back and forth, but unfortunately, turnovers. Um, right at the top of the neutral zone, right at the top, right at the blue line when they should be getting the puck out, unfortunately led to them getting down 5-1. Um, and they only managed to claw themselves back to 5-2. So disappointing a little bit, but it also gives them something that they can work on.
Jets also lost to the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, this was another one. People wanted to have an opportunity to see how Connor was doing. So after losing 5-2 on Saturday, the Jets once again managed just 2 goals on Sunday. This time they were on the road. Um, David Gustafson redirected a long-range Logan Stanley point shot in. It beat Oliver Rodrigue, giving the Jets an early 1-0 lead. That was 17 seconds in. 3 minutes later, Edmonton got one back as Sam O'Reilly beat Eric Comrie at 3:23. Both teams got one back in the third, with Raphael Lebois giving Edmonton its first lead on a power play slapper midway through the period. But the Jets responded 10 seconds later. So once we got into overtime, it took a minute 17 before Cam Dineen got the winner on the 3-on-3. So
there you go.
Hard fought. Not exactly the result they wanted, but that's the way it goes.
Senators reach arena deal with the National Capital Commission. Basically, they run all the buildings in Ottawa.
Yeah, and in this particular case here, Michael Andlauer entered into a memorandum of understanding with the NCC in June 2022 to develop the LeBreton Flats area, and the deadline was actually on Friday. Now, they've gone through this process previously. The previous deal fell through back in 2019. But this time around, Tommy Nussbaum and Cyril Leader, the Senators president and CEO, so that there were reasons to be optimistic. I am glad that they got it done. The agreement, for people who aren't aware, includes 10 acres of land at LeBreton that the Senators are actually going to own. So this is important for the development as well, because it gives them property that's actually theirs. Um, Hopefully they'll be able to get an arena. I mean, they've been playing at the Canada, out in Canada, which is about 25 kilometers away from the city's core since like 1996. So it'll be good to get them back into the city's core.
Yeah, they started in the junior arena, and then they built that arena, and it has been a problem ever since, or at least they consider it a problem. They're trying to figure out how to improve attendance, and the idea is that if if you have the arena downtown, it's the easiest place where all the transit and all that stuff meets there, so it's easier to get there instead of having to drive to the arena instead of using transit. So good luck for Ottawa with this, and congratulations on the opportunity to, I guess, in their opinion, wrong or right or wrong, whichever. The Maple Leafs lost to Ottawa in overtime. This game was very interesting. Uh, it's another one of those games where the Leafs lose the game early and then look like they might win it at the end and then lose it at the very end.
Yeah, they once again managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Now, everyone in Ottawa is actually very excited about Carter Kemchuk, but
They should
no
be.
one's been thinking about the notion of him being ready to play in the NHL. However, yeah, Kemchuk actually made Austin Matthews look a little bit lazy. Turnstile Jake McCabe avoided Mitch Marner completely, and then dropped it past former Senator Matt Murray for the winner. I just you could see it happen as soon as he slipped his check in the center zone at the start of overtime. He was like, well, here we go. If we get going now, honey, we can beat 30% of the crowd. But yeah, um, it was a great back and forth game. Don't get me wrong. There was a point where the Leafs were down, and then the Leafs were up, and then they were tied. But high scoring again, and the Senators were out shooting the Leafs 14-1 after the first period. We were actually very lucky to be only down 1-0. But
Yeah,
yeah,
15-1 shots on goal.
yeah, that was typical Leaf hockey. You get outshot all the heck, and you depend on your goalie to bail you out. So
Yeah, you know
like,
what? I watched that game, and I'm not going to pick on any individual player, but I will say that um it just didn't look like it looked like, it looked like the kind of hockey game you and I would put our skates on with no equipment and throw our sticks in the middle of the ice and pick six guys apiece and go out there and have some fun. There was the workman side of this is going to be interesting. Like practice from here on in is going to be very interesting. Under Berube, we had a couple of fights at practice, right? The physical tempo has been raised. The level of physicality that they had in this game was higher. But their responsibility defensively, I don't think anybody will dispute that it wasn't what it should be. And you pointed out something that the captain did. And this is one of those times, and I think Berube's that type of guy. You ever notice sometimes with really tough coaches, they pick on the captain. They basically pick on the star players to make sure all the players know you're all responsible for playing good defense. So it won't surprise me that this is going to happen. And I'm interested to see Austin Matthews' reaction to being criticized, because that's something that we haven't seen much around here. And it's going to be interesting on how he reacts about that kind of stuff. We know what Marner does when he's criticized. We'll see what Austin Matthews does, because now he's responsible for showing how to play. He's the one. He's got the seed.
yeah, there's no opportunity for him to duck and hide at this point. It's here we are, here we go. You are no longer going to be treated any differently than anybody else on this team, at least not under Berube. It's put up or shut up time, and you have to lead by example. So,
And they played a stronger lineup against against the Senators.
yeah.
Senators played a lot of young players who outplayed the veterans that the Leafs put out there. Aaron, you want to do a news story? We got time to do one news story.
Yeah. Let's see what we can see here. Ooh. Let's try to go with something a little less blah. Um, well, I guess it's about as non-blah as I can get with all the stuff that's out there here. The head of the Air Canada Pilots Union says she's going to step down if members opt not to approve a tentative deal with Air Canada. This is raising the stakes as aviators mull whether to accept hefty salary gains or drive an even harder bargain. The contract, which was reached last weekend after more than a year of negotiations, averted a strike that would have seen some 670 flight cancellations and 110,000 passengers affected daily. The deal would grant the carriers 5,400 pilots a cumulative wage hike of nearly 42% over 4 years, which is huge. That puts them back up on par with a lot of their American competitors. It also outstrips, in some cases, gains won last year by pilots at the three biggest U.S. airlines, where pay bumps range between 34 and 40%. The agreement has unfortunately faced scrutiny from some pilots, particularly more recent recruits, who are unimpressed with the ongoing pay gap between newer employees and their more experienced colleagues. But that's something that's going to shake itself out in the wash here. So if they do end up going on strike, then the pilots union is going to be looking for a new head. But in the meantime, we've managed to make sure that everybody's getting where they need to be.
Yeah, that's an interesting story in the sense that, to play hardball with your as the union leader, playing hardball with your people seems counterintuitive, but I guess that's part of the frustration today with everybody being so extreme. Our extremities are being stretched, is all I can say in the world today. It's like it's all or nothing, and even-handed responses and or an opportunity for more money. I'm sure there's other things they want that don't have to do with money that they want. There are a lot of things that pilots need, and that is to be, well rested with each flight, right? There's being overworked. You don't want pilots overworked. So I don't know if that's the issue this time. It was last time. So it should be interesting.
Yep, we'll definitely have to see how that all pans out. We'll make sure to keep an eye on this for everybody who's traveling.
Thanks, Aaron. Awesome.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Frank.
you, buddy. Thanks for all the hard work, and thank you for listening. Thank you to Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live, Aaron, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Network. For Candid Frank Live, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time.